Okay, so we have the language, and I guess where do you even start building an X11 server? Like, what is the first thing you do? At least, what was the first thing that you did? And even maybe before that, like, what was the prep you did to sort of even know where to begin?
Right. So I had some knowledge before of a bit of it about the protocol.
Mhm,
Uh, I didn't like I only did the basic things like connection and authentication and that.
mhm,
But also when I worked on X11, I looked at the Xorg code before. I read the protocol and things like that. I saw that.
mhm,
But then I also just looked at the X for Phoenix. I looked at the X11 protocol documentation. In there, it explains everything. At least for the core protocol, it explains how everything is set up and things like that.
mhm.
Uh, and also, I had to compare it to XCB code and XOR code. But usually, if you look at the X11 protocol, the core protocol, it's pretty easy to see.
Mhm.
And also, you can use a program called X11 Trace. When you run an X11 program with that, it will print out the protocol messages it sends, so you can see from that you can learn.
Okay. So, where did you begin? Like, what was your first goal when you started developing the project?
Um, I didn't have an end goal so in mind, but I just wanted to first get it to display graphics on the window to see first if it was uh, even possible to uh, realistically get it to work. I just want to see how complicated it was, but then I saw that it's not really that complicated, and yeah, to make it work, it's just implementing the protocols one by one until it works.
Mhm, mhm. Where is it right now? Like, what sort of state is it in?
Yeah, so it can display some basic applications,
Mhm,
and also it can display my own application, another application I have, not GPS screen encoder.
mhm,
Uh, so it's missing some input handling and some events and stuff like that. But like if I add that, then my own application should just work.
mhm,
So so for some applications, they don't really need that much. They just need to display graphics, like using OpenGL. They don't even need all rendering things,
mhm,
and then you just need input, and then they work.
mhm,
So some applications just are simple, but then there are other ones that need to some old rendering stuff and some X11 rendering stuff. And right now I'm trying to get SuperTux to run,
mhm, mhm.
and it uses SDL2. So if I get that works, then SDL2 applications will work at least. But yeah, there's quite a bit to implement. But yeah, I don't see anything hindering it. So
So it's relatively straightforward. Did you expect it to be so straightforward?
uh, I didn't even think about that. I just went in and then tried to get the basic things to display too. That was the step to see if it was simple. And then after that, I saw that it was simple.
Mhm. At this stage, how long have you been working on the project for?
Right, so I started on when I was on vacation,
Mhm,
uh, but in active development is around maybe 2 months.
mhm. Okay. When you like, how much has been done in that last 2 months? Was it at the point where it was rendering basic applications before then, or is that a really recent thing?
Right, in the like when it got all of this attention,
Mhm,
at that point it could only render the GLX Gears demo, if you know what it is.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Yeah, and then after that I had support, so it can render my own applications. So like in just a few days, it was able to display a real application.
So obviously, being able to display like basic stuff is cool and all, but the point where it would be actually usable is when you can go and display an entire desktop. Let's say like a XFC, for example. How much would need to be in place to make that possible?
Um, so, for example, yeah, if you want to display XFCE, you need to GTK applications, and you need like the render extensions and things like that.
Mhm.
So that's a bit related to what I'm working on now. That's a little bit more work. So if I get, at first I would try to get DVM, for example, to run, because that's what I'm running.
Mhm.
Getting DVM to run is not that hard, but if you want to get XFCE, that's a bit harder, because even though if I implement everything, I need to see if everything behaves as expected with a more complicated desktop.
Right.
But it's not that difficult. It's just how much time I have to focus on this.
Mhm. My understanding with Xorg is over the years, a lot of like subtle changes had been made like from the desktop environments. So I don't know if you're going to run into a point where there's things that exist in Xorg that are technically off spec.
Uh, I haven't seen that issue yet, but I have seen, for example, bugs in Xlib because it expects Xorg. Not on a protocol level, but it, for example, optional data that is supposed to be optional, it expects it to be there, otherwise it crashes.
Right.
Yeah, but in that case, it's not because it expects exactly to XOR, but it expects like it expects data to be there that they hadn't implemented yet at that point. Yeah, so I might need to implement a bit more than just basic things to get to work because of things like that as well.
Now, X11's been around for a long time. 84, something like that. That sounds about right. Over that time, there's been a lot of things. We'll just say a lot of things added to X11, and whilst most people nowadays using Xorg in a relatively simple way, relatively standard hardware, my understanding is also a lot of things that are supported by Xorg that nobody is reasonably using now.
Yeah, that's right. So, like for example, in my own application and that I run with Phoenix, it only uses a tiny fraction of the protocol, and that's the case for most applications. So, like if you try to get my games to run, it will be the easiest part because they don't really use a lot of the protocol. They usually just want to get the buffer, and then display it on the screen, and get the input. So getting games to run will be the first part it will be able to do. And then also, yeah, as you said, there are a lot of things that people don't use. And right now, I'm just implementing extensions of the X11 protocol as I see them.
Right.
So yeah, so the way I'm implementing it is that I don't just start from this first thing and then go down and implement everything. I run real applications and then see what they need, and then implement those things.
So you didn't really have a idea of where to start. You wanted to just base it off of, hey, I can trace what protocols are being used. Let's just follow an application and see exactly what that needs. And then if you don't run into any applications that need something, that can sort of be left somewhere down the line.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, that actually makes sense as a way to sort of guide your direction, because there are a couple of other X11 implementations out there, but the idea of building an X11 server hasn't been that common of a thing. There's X11 no, I don't remember what it's called. There's definitely a few other servers out there, but the point I'm trying to get at there is there's not a ton of other examples of sort of how to approach building an X11 server. You have Xorg, which has tons and tons of stuff in it, but not necessarily everything in that is actually required for real applications now, or even possibly real applications ever.
Yeah. So I think it's much easier than people think. At least the core part, like for example, the extensions. Not everything is properly documented. Like it mentions which things are part of the API, but it doesn't mention like how the messages are supposed to look like. So you have to look at sometimes you have to look at the XCB XML files instead, and maybe sometimes in the Xorg code. But that's one thing my project Phoenix will improve, because it will generate the protocol from the parse structs. So it will always have all of the implementations, all protocols documented. So it will be a little bit easier for others also to get into that.
One thing I'm kind of curious about is how does an X server work? If that makes sense. Like, if I'm trying to run an application, what is the X server actually doing?
Right. So when a client connects to X11, that's the first thing they do. They connect to the X11 server, and then after that, like they want to display a graphics inside the window usually, and they do that by like, if for example if they do use OpenGL, the OpenGL creates a buffer. The GPU driver does that, and then it asks the X11 server to import that. So they share the file descriptor to the server, and then it imports that with OpenGL, and then the driver will ask it to display that, and it will display that. So the communication to the X11 server is not just in the application, but also in the driver. So the driver, because on Linux there is no standard way to like share the graphics data with the display server. Instead, there's a Wayland way, and then there's a X11 way. So yeah, it uses a DRE3 extension to do that. And then also you want to do things like when the window is focused, you want to get input then instead of always getting input. And that it does that by sending events to the client when you move the cursor, for example, and press buttons. But that's just that's the basic thing setup you have in applications. There are other things that you can do like around that, but those are the important parts.
Right. Okay.